Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first time at this meeting. I am an assistant professor of speech language pathology and audiology at Towson University in Towson, Maryland in the US. I'm a speech language pathologist by training, and so it's a pleasure to be in this interdisciplinary group of folks. I'm here today to talk about a paper that we recently published in Topics in Language Disorders on a mixed methods analysis of deception detection by neurodiverse young adults. And when I say neurodiverse, what I mean is we had a sample of participants who were known to be autistic, participants who were known not to be autistic, and participants who kind of scored in the borderland of screening measures for autism. And so we truly had a diverse representation of diagnoses and also autistic traits. A little background on this. So my research centers language development and use in autistic and other neurodivergent people. And so that's sort of how I came to this approach to deception detection. Certain communication characteristics that are common to autistic people may lead them to increased vulnerability to deception, but research in this area still remains limited. Research like this is important because autistic adults have identified that their communication difficulties lead them to feel vulnerable in social interactions. So to support successful social communication for autistic people, we should understand these patterns. Towards that end, the purpose of the present study was to understand the reasons that were offered by neurodiverse young adults when judging whether someone was lying or telling the truth. Our research questions for this study were: first, what strategies do young adults use to determine whether an unfamiliar speaker is lying or telling the truth? Two, do participants with high levels of autistic traits differ from those with lower levels of autistic traits in terms of the strategies they use to detect deception? And third, does the accuracy of a truthfulness judgment differ according to the person's level of autistic traits, the strategies that they used, or both? We had 51 participants whose data we were able to analyze for this particular study. They were, I believe, between the ages of 18 and 32, so all relatively young adults, mean age right around 20 years. In the group of participants with low autistic traits, there were 37 people and 14 in the group with high autistic traits. We used the autism quotient, or the AQ, and the social responsiveness scale, or the SRS-2, to quantify autistic traits regardless of formal diagnoses. So these are self-report questionnaires about whether and to what extent a person experiences characteristics that are associated with autism. We also measured full-scale IQ using the WASI, and you see their, by group, their accuracy on a lie detection task there. For the experimental task, we had the participants watch videos of interviews with people who had an opportunity to cheat at a trivia game. These are stimuli that were validated by Levine in 2011 and have been used in a number of studies since then. We were grateful for the opportunity to use them. Half of the interviewees in these videos cheated on the trivia game, while half of them did not. All of the interviewees said they did not cheat. Participants in our study judged whether they thought each interviewee was honest or lying, and then participants typed a few words about why they made that choice. We looked at both this quantitative and qualitative data. We applied thematic analysis to identify major themes and sub-themes in the participants' stated reasons for identifying truthfulness and dishonesty. Then we used non-parametric statistics to compare the frequency of use of each theme between participant groups, so those with high autistic traits versus low autistic traits, to compare the accuracy of the 4 themes that we derived from the thematic analysis, and also to compare accuracy between participant groups. We use non-parametric statistics due to the imbalanced sizes of the participant groups, and also the fact that many of our variables did not meet assumptions of normality. These were our main themes from the reasons that people said they used to determine whether someone was telling the truth. The 3 biggest ones are illustrated in this figure, and there was a 4th, much smaller theme of nebulous reasons that were things like, I don't know, something just seems off, or I just trusted my gut on this one. We would count that as a nebulous reason. They made up a very small part of the data sample. The three largest themes were descriptions of the person. So this was words that were associated with subjective characteristics of the interviewee. So they don't look trustworthy, they don't seem honest. This person was nervous, or this person was very confident. And you can see some of the sub-themes illustrated there as well. The second major theme of nonverbal communication included things like body language and facial expression and eye contact, characteristics of speech and the voice like stuttering or speaking fluently, and whether the person moved while they were answering the interviewer's questions. And that third theme of observable response features referred to very specific information about how the interviewee responded and what they said. So a pretty common sub-theme in that category had to do with details, with people who provided specific details about what had happened during their trivia game, generally being judged as more honest than people who were very vague in their responses. Timing of the response was also a big feature here, with if people hesitated, they were more often judged to be lying, like they needed time to think about what lie to produce, whereas people who answered very quickly were more often judged to be honest. Then we move into the quantitative results. When we look at the frequency of these strategies, we see no significant differences between groups. So you'll see our group with high autistic traits shaded in gray here, and the group with low autistic traits as the open box plot. So we see both groups used that observable response features category slightly more frequently, even though these differences were not significant, and the nebulous reasons were much less frequent in both groups. Then we look at accuracy of these strategies and the observable response features. So those things we can definitely see and describe about what a person said were significantly more accurate than either descriptions of the person and their subjective characteristics or nonverbal communication features, which goes in very nicely with what Esteban was just talking about. There were no significant differences in accuracy between the participant groups, but the group with high autistic traits were slightly more accurate overall, which we thought was very interesting. This is at odds with some of our preconceived notions about autistic people as not being as good at picking up on social cues. So to sum this up, people in our study who self-reported high and low levels of autistic traits used similar strategies to determine truthfulness, and they used those strategies with similar accuracy to each other. So thinking about this from my clinical vantage point, if I'm working to support the communication of people in their communities, if we need to teach someone to detect lies, we should focus on the observable features of the person's communication, like what did they say, more so than we should focus on their nonverbal communication or what we think of them subjectively. We could also potentially use these findings to teach people more successful ways to lie without being detected. There are circumstances in everyday life where complete honesty may not be the most desirable thing. Think about these so-called white lies of, your friend gets a new haircut and asks how you like it, and you think it's awful, but you're not going to say that because you don't want to hurt your friend's feelings. So how can we express harmless untruths and get away with it? Finally, we need to raise awareness about common autistic behaviors that are misjudged often as evidence of deceit. And these are especially prevalent in that nonverbal communication category. So things like fidgeting. A lot of our participants commented on, someone was fiddling with their jewelry, or, cracking their knuckles, playing with their fingers, just being fidgety. This might be, for an autistic person, a self-stimulatory behavior or a stim that helps them to regulate their body and their mind, or the avoidance of eye contact, which is often identified as a tool for determining untruthfulness. So if somebody doesn't make direct eye contact or keeps looking away from you, or they looked up and to the left in these very specific ways, people tended to judge that as the person lying, but avoidance of eye contact is also very common for autistic people because sustained direct eye contact can actually be painful for them. So this goes towards reducing stigma against autistic people and their characteristic behaviors, so that autistic folks and other neurodivergent people will not be unfairly judged as lying when they're really telling the truth. So that is my brief description of this study that we are happy to bring to you. Thank you again for your time and attention. This work was completed in Dr. Rajesh Khanna's Cognition, Brain, and Autism Lab at the University of Alabama, which is now at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And I now have the Diverse Neurotypes Communication Lab at Towson, where I am proud to be the PI. Thank you again very much.